Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Do you want to tell everyone how we met and got
Yeah.
connected?
So we met up Bear Canyon Trail, and you had caught a loose mule or horse. Was she
Horse.
she was
Yep.
a horse. And I was running. I was on a training run. And we passed on the trail and had an interaction where we were looking for we were looking for the man who belonged to the horse.
Yeah.
So that
That that horse is coined now Ghost Rider.
Go. Did you ever find the owner of the horse?
No, but we took the horse back to the trailhead. There was
Okay.
another trailer there. We tied her to the trailer, talked to the neighbor. She came out with her daughter. We said, "Hey, we hung out, we had lunch, and nobody came. We said we're gonna take our horses back, but we'll come back a little bit later." She said, "Okay, I'll be around." The trailer was gone. The horse was gone.
Okay.
The mystery is
So
still
he came
unsolved.
down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was a pack horse, so there wasn't supposed to be a rider on it. It just had pack saddles, but I don't know if she untied herself, but the way the halter was tied to the pack saddle, so it seemed intentional that that
Yeah.
horse could have been following a crew, but
Well, I think I had passed the owner of the horse like
okay.
10 miles up, but he had said something. He was walking, he was leading his other horse. So something had happened, and I asked how he was doing, and he said, "It's been a day." So, but he said, "You might run into the next horse and she'll just let you go by." But I had thought that horse would have had a rider, but no. So Ghost Rider is her name.
Yeah.
Have you seen her since?
No. I've showed the picture to a few people. Do you recognize this horse? And she was beelining down the trail.
Oh,
She
okay.
seemed that she was on a mission, from what I understand. They might have an intuition or an instinct when they're separated which way to
To
head.
go
Yeah, so
back.
I don't
Yeah.
maybe she recalled where they had started. I don't know, but
Okay. Well, I have to say it's such a positive impression of you and your partner that you were riding with that day as just very kind people.
yeah, we were just thinking, who knows what happened, whose horse
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
and it just didn't seem right to leave it and wander on. And we just thought there would have been a note, or there would have been something if this was intentional.
Yeah.
You would think just a note, hey, let this horse keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know, and you don't know how people do things, but you can go worst case scenario, maybe there was a bear attack, maybe somebody was injured.
Sure.
Who knows? Yeah. The mystery is still unresolved, but
Ghost Rider.
yeah.
She's out there.
Yeah. I think she's probably home with her
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah. And then a couple months later, here we are.
Yeah. So tell me what you do
Oh,
for an occupation
wow.
in this world.
Occupation. Okay. So I do leadership development, and I'm a professional coach specifically for founders and business owners.
Okay. What does that look like, and how did you get into it?
So what that looks like actually, I often describe my work as holding a flashlight for others that are finding their way forward, in usually growing their business. So the business owners I work with have cracked a ceiling of sorts, right? So the majority of them are at 7 or 8 figures in their business. So have passed the million or $10 million mark. Most of them in the 5 to 50 million annual revenue range. So they've found success, but they are at a stage that is calling for their own evolution, meaning, from a doing perspective, from a metrics perspective, right? Their business is generating revenue. They likely have a team. Customers are happy, but that owner might start to have a sense of like something is off, or like, is this all there is? And so actually the way that I came to coaching was by hiring a coach myself.
You're saying I'm not the only one who has those thoughts?
No, you are
Okay.
not. And in fact, I was talking to somebody this morning who's a very successful business owner, and we were talking about the possibility of working together. And so I was asking them what has them considering hiring a coach. And this person, one talked about, right, the success they've had in their business, and then oops, sorry,
You're good.
next said, but I feel like a lot of time I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, how did this actually come to be? And I'm worried that I'm going to mess it up. Like at some point, right? Maybe the other shoe drops and this whole thing falls apart. Um, and our minds, right, can be both our best friend and our worst enemy. And so where I see professional coaching fitting in, and especially the type of coaching that I offer, is really allowing high achieving, ambitious, right, driven, interested, curious people to reach their highest potential by helping them remove the roadblocks that are keeping them stuck. Which, if you're a business owner or a founder who's had traction, likely what's standing in your way from achieving the next level of success or potential is your own damn self.
I'm gonna ask you a really, I'm gonna ask you a really broad question,
Okay.
and I'm sure you have a bunch of different answers. In your mind, is it generally tactical, emotional? Do you look at this as tactical coaching? Do you look at it as therapy? Is it a blend of the both? Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule Media is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, or passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, post it in your story. That one simple action helps these businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this show keep going. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. Now back to the show.
I love that question. So definitely not therapy, and I think that's a really important distinction. I am not a trained therapist, and in fact, I think for anybody who's listening, if you're ever in conversation with a coach who starts to talk about therapy that's not certified in that particular area or expertise, I would say something that's a yellow flag, red flag maybe, because there are phenomenal therapists out there, many, many great ones in our county and valley. I think one of the biggest distinctions between therapy and coaching is that coaching in particular, it's a 50-50 partnership. So there's not a scenario where, say, if I'm right, me in the role of a coach, I'm the expert and you are a student, or in fact, it's often the other way around. The person that I'm working with or I'm partnering with is an expert in their own life, in what it is that they want to get out of their business, what they're building, their impact, but may have lost the thread. Or, I'll share a story with you. So one of my clients, who I've been working with now for almost a full 18 months, almost 2 years. We've done a couple different iterations of things in coaching. And when we wrapped up our first intensive together, which is how I work one-on-one with founders and owners, um, I was asking for feedback, and she said to me, one of the things I was kind of frustrated with when we were first working together was, given your business background and your expertise in building businesses and in marketing, you weren't really giving me any advice. Like, I thought that I would come in, right, and have a couple business challenges, and then we'd have an opportunity to like tactically problem solve. And so she said, what I did notice was often like you were asking me questions. And through that, at the end of the day, I found that to be really, really helpful and actually more impactful than any other type of business coaching I've done. Because when I can see the answer and it's more connected to what I know to be true, then the impact or the transformation that comes from that is so much larger than anything that might come from a book or anything you could, right? You can find a lot of business advice on the internet.
Yeah,
But I think it's that one-to-one nature of having the space and time to get really clear on what's actually going on at a root level versus some of the tactical things that we can get really focused on as the right thing we should be doing in growing a business.
that's very cool. As the founder of Mountain Mule and Mountain Mule
Yeah,
Media connecting Montana, I could not agree more with the sitting down and that there's something that happens when you collaborate with people physically and it's intentional that has such a profound result. And there's, like you said, there's so much information on the internet, but sometimes it's hard to put that in the right context and internalize it properly.
sure. Um, I mean, can I ask you a question? I
Absolutely.
know you're the interviewer.
I'll allow
So,
one.
I mean, what have you noticed as you grow your business or businesses and like the places that have friction or you might feel like stuck?
Oh,
What do you notice about
where
them?
do I start? I mean, delegation, I think,
Oh,
is a
yeah.
huge thing for me. And a small backstory on me: I grew up on a farm, and I just said this to someone earlier today. My greatest strength and my biggest weakness was growing up on a farm
Yes.
because we can get anything done by ourselves, and that's really important when it needs to happen. And there's animals to feed and there's crops to put in, but when you reach that limitation and there's people that are willing and able and eager to help, and you just have to let them. So for me, it's delegation and,
Yeah.
understanding my strengths, understanding my weaknesses, and then, you know, building the right team.
Yeah. And I love what you shared about that as like, I thought like the phrase two sides of the same coin. And you said it's my biggest strength and it's my biggest weakness. And in the coaching that I do one-on-one with founders and owners, we start by identifying habits and patterns, right? How that on one hand have allowed them, and I've gone actually the way that I became a coach was actually going through this coaching when I had my own business and it was in rapid growth mode about 4 or 5 years ago. And what I found as I was able to engage in this coaching with the talented coach I worked with, Riss Higgins. Many people who might listen to this that might be in the area might know her and her approach, and really deeply understanding that there are habits and patterns that I learned, right, from a very young age, and that continually were reinforced as I was in school, when I went to college, or my first job, that allowed me to be successful and have achievement. But in the same vein, they were the same exact habits and patterns that were actually holding me back from being a successful leader and moving to the next stage of my own evolution.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting?
It
Who
is.
you need to be to have the courage and strength to start a business, and then who you need to be to lead and manage a team. Could be day and night difference,
Right.
and yeah, it's an evolution.
It is. And I love that word too, because I think it like, I don't know, take some of like the blame or the gripping or like it should, often in coaching conversations or just in conversation, if I hear somebody use that word like it should be different or I should be able to do it this way, that's often like a good clue that there's some misalignment. Um, and we're always continually learning, but I think what can often get in our way, like for me, when I went through the same coaching intensives that I now offer to others, I was able to identify that one of my limited beliefs or like a story that I had was that I have to be responsible. And on one hand, that allowed me to do a lot of great things, right? Excel in school, like be the person who got things done. In the corporate environment, I would be the one that like pulled multiple all-nighters to like deliver a project and have it be perfectly right. But once you move into the role of an owner or a team leader, or you're really more focused on impact than execution, that type of story and belief was actually holding me back from having the influence that I wanted, building the business, engaging team members, enabling others to grow. Because in my mind, or like my monkey mind, right, I thought I had to be the one to get it perfectly right.
And tell me again what you said your kind of belief was.
I have to be responsible.
Because when you said I pulled an all-nighter working, I was thinking I think that's subjective to if that's responsible or not.
Right. No, which is another great example, right? And for me, it was like, well, I'm the one, like the one who's who's the last one that can get this done exactly as it should be done. So it's my responsibility to like take it across the finish line. Um, but to that point of it being subjective, every one of us has a set of beliefs, right? And things that we learn from how we grew up or how we experience the world. And to us, whoever holds that belief, it seems true, like capital T true, no doubt about it. And that guides our actions, our behavior, how we relate to others. And if we're to bring it back to coaching and how that impacts people that are leading and building businesses, how you show up, not only what you do, right? Because there's doing and there's being. And it, these challenges or things that you navigate later on in your career as you move into more of a leadership role have much more to do with how you're being than what you're doing.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, first I want to how does that sit with you? When I say that, what does that make you think?
How how you're being versus what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked you to elaborate on it.
Okay.
Do you just mean kind of how you exist, how you carry yourself, how
Yeah.
you're showing up?
Yeah. Yes. So, and one, you, Tim, mentioned that challenge, which I think so many people who are listening, who are business owners or leaders or even heads of their family or part of a community organization, that lesson of delegation requires a lot of release, right? Of attachment to the outcome or if a project being done a certain way. And the doing part, I think we all get rewarded, right, in our system of education and early jobs by being the person who does it, who gets it done,
Yeah.
can execute, can deliver the project, can get up early, feed the animals, show progress by output. And yet, as you move into a leadership role, you asked, was there an emotional part about this? I think our emotions and how we are being, how we're understanding our relationship to people around us, that actually becomes so much more important than writing the report or sending the email, right? Because as a leader, you're trying to move others. And ideally, I think as I understand a lot of the guests that you have on your podcast, they are people that are interested in making an outsized impact. And to be able to do that, you also have to be right with yourself, really understand how do I show up in the version of myself that is the best and brightest versus the version of myself that goes into survival mode or right acts from a place of fear or constriction.
I want to say two things to it.
Okay.
I love that you touch your heart when you say
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So this is how I think of it when you say that, how you're being. And this is I I have this more down intellectually than emotionally, I'll say.
Sure.
It's a work in progress. But for me, what I've realized is it's how present can I be? And that's when the hippie in me comes out or whatever you want to call it. But if I can, if I can be there and not be so worried about a million things in the monkey mind going on, and I can be there, for my employees, for my customers, for my community, and hear what they're saying
Yeah.
and take it in, and then I can show up for them. But if I'm out to lunch somewhere else in my mind, they're getting a skeleton version of me.
I think that's totally right. And then imagine on top of that, and I know you've probably been here in a situation where you have to make a really high stakes decision or your decision, right, will impact many people in your team. Um, I think you said the hippie, and sometimes I
Yeah.
say I'll check in with people is this a little too woo woo?
Yeah.
Because my professional background is very analytical. I spent almost a decade at Google. I ran a growth firm, a direct to consumer e-commerce growth firm where we were deep into data every day, all day long. And in that role, we often, and I think we can default to a black and white understanding of what the right decision is, or the sense of emotion should be out of business. And in fact, I have come to learn that I believe that's completely false. I think emotions and our understanding of how we're being in the world, how we're showing up with other humans, are messages for us to then make very thoughtful decisions and responses versus being a state of reaction. Like, when we're in survival mode, for example, we're in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Are you familiar with that?
The fight or
Like
fight or
fight or
flight,
flight.
the fawn or freeze.
They've added fawn
Okay.
recently, but so fight or flight. Let's stick with that. When you are in that state, right? And it could be our body and our brain doesn't know the difference if it's a saber-toothed tiger coming down on us or you get a really crappy email from a customer that's upset, right? That sense of like, if you were to do, let's say, Tim, you get an email from a customer or somebody that was working with you and they just send you this scathing email that you open up. What happens in your body?
Yeah, my heart starts beating, and
Yeah,
my breath almost stops,
right.
and yeah, just the tension builds, and
Yes. Yeah, so we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic part of our nervous system. And where we're in that state of fight or flight, that like reactive mode, our ability to make great decisions, maintain a state of curiosity, connect with others completely shuts down. And so I really work with leaders to identify like make more space for them not to move into a state of reaction, which is very normal. And our brains and bodies are designed to do that to protect us. But it limits our ability to make great decisions, to influence others, and ultimately to show up in the way that we want to be in our leadership. So I'll ask you a follow-up question. If you're full on in fight or flight,
I've been tricked here, folks.
this is so fun. Thank you for being game. So you're fight or flight, right? You get this email,
Yeah.
and let's say you just respond right away. You don't even take a moment to think. You just write a response and send it. What is that response gonna be?
That's not going to be good.
Right?
That's
Yeah. And if that happens repeatedly over and over and over again, you begin to, right, like sort of, I mean, on one hand, have a reputation for yourself. On the other hand, at the end of the day, that doesn't actually allow you to lead or have like a really positive impact on those around you, whether or not like they sent you a nasty email. So let's take another example. You slow it way down and you have the ability to think, how do I want to respond? What is the best outcome that I'm looking for? How do I want this to really resolve at the very highest level?
yeah,
Then
the
how do you
mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably get to a solution and maybe salvage or improve a relationship,
Yeah.
whether it's a customer or an employee.
Yeah. Totally. So, and that's not but it takes time and practice, right? Especially in high stakes, high pressure situations.
Is this where some delegation will be important to make sure that all that
Mm.
stuff maybe isn't being streamlined right to you? Maybe somebody's, you know, is screening some of these
Oh,
emails and this stuff, and
yeah. I love yeah, that could be a great example to bring us back to where we started of like, you decide then, okay, the highest and best use of my time is not being the first line receiver of emails or comments on social media or right any feedback. I, as the owner, want to be hyper focused on the highest impact activities. And then you actually have some brain space to begin to determine what are those. And then how does that serve my higher level goal in the business, which is likely not, I mean, customers, of course, keeping customers happy, um, but yeah, it gives you that more space, I would say.
was trying to think of an analogy. If there's somebody in your family, friend group, whatever you have, and they might worry a lot, and this could
Mm,
be a situation that they would get hyper worried about,
mm,
but there's no value in them knowing. So you say, hey, just don't tell them right now. They don't need to know. And then, maybe you can tell them later, maybe the situation's resolved. And I think of that type of, and that wasn't a good analogy because I didn't have one come to mind, but maybe as the leader, that same thought process of don't bog them down. If the team can think, let's not bog Kelly down with this stuff because she's going to execute on some stuff that's really important, is going to overall is the most important thing for the company. So let's not bog her down with these sort of, not that they're unimportant things, but things that can just be resolved, delegated and
yeah.
resolved.
Oh, actually, I love that example. And I think in this example, you were saying Kelly as the boss, or right,
Yeah,
not to have to read the email.
you're the boss.
Thank you. In this scenario, I'll take it. But I think for those that I work one-on-one with who are the owners of the company, like being able to be aware of their own emotions and manage them then allows them to do their biggest job as an owner, which is remove obstacles for their team. So a leader who's in constant survival mode or constant fight or flight, right? Who's like reactive, maybe screams or yells or like sends really curt responses. If you zoom out and look at the culture and the performance of their team, I guarantee you they will be underperforming in every single metric than if you look at a leader who's able to, right, who has tools and tactics to be able to be super calm, collected, very clear in the goals, is able to give really specific feedback and also make requests of their team. And so I would say, like, for me and how I coach with leaders, that's really what we're going for them to find ease, to be able to navigate the ups and downs of entrepreneurship because it is a roller coaster.
So I'm going to say this back to you. Let me know if I understand. So rather than just delegate and say avoid all those potentially confrontational situations, you're coaching them to be able to regulate themselves rather than just sort of, well, if everyone else deals with all the bad stuff, maybe I can stay in the right place.
I think that's 100% right. Yeah. And of course, right, we're using a very specific example. But if you zoom that out, I think what you've just said is exactly right. It's a matter of like, one, building self awareness. What am I reacting to and why? Understanding the root cause of that. And then two, learning new ways. You're effectively in the coaching that I'm doing with my clients, we're building new neural pathways in their brain. And that sounds a little wild, but really at the end of the day,
Sounds like just got done listening to another Andrew Huberman podcast, so I'm all about it.
well, I mean, it's behavioral
Yeah.
science, right? I mean, it's just like when we're young, right, between the years of 0 and 13, our jobs as little human beings are to take in the world around us and make sense of our place in it. And so through that, we learn through stimulus and response. So let's imagine knowing you spend a ton of time in the mountains, like, a game trail, like one deer, one elk goes through and makes like one little game trail. And then another will follow, maybe 3 or 4 follow. It's the same with our brain. When we have a stimulus and a response, a neural pathway is established. And then as we have more and more and more interactions, we learn that that is an easy way to, right, stop being uncomfortable or make somebody happy. And so in coaching, we're understanding what are the habits and patterns that have served me very well. For me, right, that would be like um, perfectionism, overworking, I think like signing up, saying yes to a lot, maybe without the capacity to follow through. And so, but I've been rewarded for some of that behavior. And that, like, when that opportunity presents itself, my yes or my reaction is like, it's not a game trail anymore, it's a 20-lane highway. And so we're working on rebuilding with intention a series and set of behaviors that are based on story first, how we understand what's happening in the world around us.
That's very cool. I really like
I think so.
the game trail
Okay,
analogy.
yeah, it's a good analogy, right? It makes sense.
I was talking with another business owner, entrepreneur. And he was from Louisiana. That's where he grew up. I grew up on the other side of the country in the East Coast, and we were talking about those those pathways that are so well paved when you're young. And a big part of at least his life and my life, and I'm sure a lot of people's life, is changing those pathways.
Yeah.
And it's funny how certain things will want to take you right back to them,
Yes.
and especially the environment. Going back to where I grew up, for
Sure.
better or worse, there's plenty of positives and there's plenty
Right.
of negatives, but it's so interesting to see how interwove and how deep some of those trails, those call them trails, those
Yeah.
pathways are. But they're automatic. You don't think about them. It's
Yeah.
you roll down them.
I mean, you're a fish in water, right? And
Yeah,
so I think one of the benefits of coaching, in particular professional coaching, not business consulting, that's different, um, but is to, like, I actually have the honor of creating space for leaders to have some time to honestly, like, take a breath, breathe, be out of the water for a little bit so they can understand, like, how do I want to move forward? What do I want this to look like? Instead of being in pure execution firefighting mode. Actually, there's two words that I hear clients talk about or describe usually when we before we begin working together is one being in firefighting mode and two that game of whack-a-mole, when
Yeah.
you're like constantly trying to like anticipate what could be going on. But even and I'm making, for those that are listening, I'm making these like movements with my hands, but it completely distracting, right? It doesn't allow you to actually see the bigger picture, which is your job as an owner.
Yeah. Is there anything specific that comes to mind or that you think of that is the most effective, or is it very subjective to the individual you're working with as far as, getting focused and being able to keep some emotional stability and some balance throughout the turmoil and chaos of running a business?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the in my coaching practice, we use a very specific framework around the first intensive that I'll do with people is called it's an intensive on your limited self. And your limited self is essentially like how you are, your set of beliefs, reactions when you're in survival mode, fight or flight. And by naming those specifically, so I shared with you that I understood that my limited belief, which is one part of my limited self, is I have to be responsible. I was also able to identify that my hidden fear is that I'm a spineless, mediocre failure.
Ah.
It doesn't sound good,
Yeah.
right? And I like up until recently, I would actually get quite emotional to say that out loud because it is something that I have come to understand. I've spent so much time, right, proving that I am not that thing, that any time that I have a sense that like people think that might be a play, that might actually be true, I go into like, um, my limited self, that very limited capacity that is based on fear. Um, and it really constrains, like it disconnects me from others, especially those I'm trying to lead. But it also just like puts the blinders on and I go into like go mode to try to prove I'm not that thing, that I'm not a failure. And that sense of failure is very present. I mean, I would say almost consistently as business owners, and we don't talk about it all the time. Um, but, I would say I have the opportunity to meet with a lot of really incredible builders, people that are at the cutting edge of, I think, what is possible in business. And yet, even those people have, right, a hidden fear, a limited belief, the things that like really, some people say trigger them or like really like get them off balance. And unless you learn how to come back into a stable place, it's really hard to continue to like move towards a bigger vision. Does
Yeah.
that make sense as I share it?
It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it in myself, and we all have it, and I see evolutions of it. Like there's just another layer to the onion that never ends.
I think that's such a great way to say it. And in fact, I have a client who's just phenomenal. And we were in an early conversation and they said, their business is growing like 2 to 3x every 6 months. They're in like full growth mode. And they had said to me the reason why they wanted to engage in a coaching intensive, specifically in the way that this is set up, is that they know that at each level that their business is ready to evolve to, the thing that holds their business back is themselves. And so for them to be able to continue to support the level of growth and opportunity that their business has, they themselves have to evolve and release ways of doing things or beliefs that they have about who they were when the business was $1 million business, who's going to be different than how they want to show up when they've reached the level of being a $10 million business. And that to me, I still think about that every week.
The I've heard it phrased as the person that got you here cannot get you there.
100%. And yet, like, you wouldn't be here without that person who got you right from stage 1 to stage 10. And I think the other part about this is like not blaming, right? Or being like, oh, I didn't know anything, or I was so dumb, or oh, my parent, when we talk about like our childhood experiences, the purpose of that is not to say like your parents did things wrong, or, I mean, people have a whole variety of experiences in their childhood. But it's really to say, okay, from today, how can I understand that context and use it to make choices about how I move forward? Not, right, get kind of stuck back and like, well, this has happened to me, or I'll always be this way. Because the beautiful thing about humans, it's like we have infinite potential to evolve and change and make choices.
I'll tell you an experience from this week, which can
Okay.
add some context.
Yeah.
So I told you this podcast studio. We've been in here for the past year plus, and I'm leasing a shop space over in Belgrade. That's where I keep my vehicles and everything for Mountain Mule. And I wanted a bigger, more expensive studio and office space with some windows.
Sure.
And we've also outgrown the shop a little bit. So this place came on the market for lease, and it's got a big office studio space, lots of room for our vehicles, lots of room outside. And it's just a stretch financially, and it's big. And I'm like, you know
Mm,
what? A year ago, we didn't even have a shop a year
right.
ago, and I was so uncomfortable this week about it, feeling
Sure.
it emotionally. And in a past life, a few years ago, I used to chew tobacco and use nicotine. I I swear to you, this week I wasn't that close because I didn't walk in anywhere to buy some,
Well, yeah.
but I was just feeling the stress and the angst, and for some reason I had this moment of clarity, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to be okay with this because this is
Mm,
discomfort because
yeah.
this is unfamiliar, and I'm going to have to evolve to where this is comfortable, and then this is going to
Yes.
happen again in 6 months.
Right.
I was like, this is not fun.
Oh, I mean, God, what a perfect example. And like as you talk about those two emotions, like um within our brain, so if we go back to like what physiologically was happening in that moment, right? If you look at an MRI and there's the motion of fear and or the motion of anxiety, right? Anxiety and fear, and the one of excitement, both of those experiences are identical as they happen in your brain and body,
Yep.
right? The difference is how you interpret them. So, I mean, I'm glad we're recording because that example you shared, I really want that, like, right, the story that we tell ourselves, you could have said, you said, me 2 years ago would have been like, shut it down. No way. Like, I'm not getting that far out in front of the bank account. And then you today have grown the business through a couple different stages. You have confidence, right? There are ways that you can move forward. And so even the way that you said it, like, this is okay. We're okay. And there's reasons I'm making this decision to make growth possible, but often like that edge of growth can feel very uncomfortable. And so it's a matter of like having the mindset and understanding, am I feeling uncomfortable because this is the wrong thing to do and I'm scared? Or am I feeling uncomfortable because I've never been here before and it's something new to navigate?
And how do you know which it is?
Ooh, I love that question. So I think the way that you know which it is actually um, knowing yourself really well. And there's a lot of us, I think, that go through life, right? Executing or doing or moving on to the next thing and like haven't taken a lot of time to get to know their own self. Like it's been very much told from the outside, like externally um validated things you're doing or the reason why you make decisions. And so I think it's like that internal compass getting really clear. And one of the ways you get clear on that is by continually coming up against opportunities for growth. Um, like, can we talk about running a little bit?
Absolutely. I was going to bring it up either way, so let's do it.
So, um, so one, I mean, I think I shared in a past life, I was a mountain bike guide and a trekking guide down in Chile. And recently have had the opportunity to explore a little bit more around endurance running. Um,
I cut you off
yeah.
because when we had our interaction with Ghost Rider,
Oh.
you said, "Oh, 10 miles that way." I saw the owners.
Yeah, it
So
was a long run
you're obviously a runner.
out for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't always been. Um, so let's see. And I'll tie this back to business too and what we've been talking about, because I think you only know your own limits and understand like the difference between being afraid and wanting to stop versus recognizing that this is a new challenge, but you have the capacity and capability to keep going when you have the opportunity to test those limits. Um, and so yeah, we got to meet on a run, or you were riding, I was running.
Yeah.
Um,
I was trying to relax, folks.
I was trying to relax too.
Okay.
But actually this year, so in January, I opened my coaching practice last April. So I was like 9 months, 10 months into building this new business, which is my leadership development and coaching practice. And I really was intent on being different in the building of this business. I had had a couple iterations of starting businesses. I had had a corporate career. I was in the nonprofit sector prior to that. And each and every time I felt like I would be overcome. Like I would start with this like intent to have balance in my work and, be able to like, uh, regulate, like strike a balance between like play and work. And I would find that time and time again, if I didn't reach the point of burnout, I would definitely like be all consumed by whatever focus I had professionally. Um, and I had taken a sabbatical. I'd actually rolled down my growth agency. And my family and I took a 1-year sabbatical where we left Bozeman and went to the Dominican Republic, where my father's from. So my family's from there. Um, and I had for the first time, maybe ever, like um, space to spend a lot of time with my kids. I have 2 girls that are 7th graders now.
Are they twins?
They're identical
Oh,
twins.
nice. Congratulations.
Thank you, Scarlett and Lola. They're
Very
they're
cool.
awesome kids. It, and like, but up until that point, and they were 9 at the time, my husband was actually the primary parent in our family. Um, Meaning like we've historically split roles. One of us focused on earning money, having health insurance, and the other one taking point on family things. Um, and then we'll kind of trade out. So taking this sabbatical put me in a very different position in one, not really having a professional identity any longer, or at least for that time. And two, really things shifting in my family. Um, so we're coming back to running, which is, I think, sport and like being able to push my body physically and having the mental component has also always been something that I think has brought me back down to earth. And you're nodding. Do you
Yeah,
share that?
I've just like exercise is very important to me. I've played sports most of my life, and it's always just that. I I I'm a very I'm somebody that lives in my body. Like I love anything that's
Ah,
physical. The more I can be moving, the better for me.
and I imagine with animals as well, knowing a little bit. Do you like pack horses, or
No,
do you pack
no,
mules
no. Just run, just ride, trail ride for fun right now.
for enjoyment?
Yeah, and I've gone on some overnight trips, and it's something I might do more of as time progresses. But
Yeah.
I love just the connection to my like the physical world in my body. So
Yeah.
I think I get where you're going with the
Yes.
running and the
Well, and I think also it's a space to really like test boundaries, but I found like for me, being in an environment like a racing environment or signing up for a race or like getting a bib, just like activated this part of myself that I don't really enjoy, the competitive part,
Mhm.
versus like long distance endurance running, where I've traded out like a race bib for bear spray, is a way to really not only like push the limits physically and mentally, but also be deeply connected. Like, not, my phone usually doesn't get service. Like, you're just out in an element. And I think I took us on a little journey, so I'm going to bring us back through, those types of things like the long distance running. And I had the chance this year to decide when I started to feel myself really in my head, actually make a choice that I was going to make this new experience of like endurance running a primary business goal. Like I had set goals throughout the year, not racing, but adventures I wanted to do with friends, um, and really prioritize that as a way to make space for like being not in my head all the time, not in that state of like, this has got to get done, that's got to get done. But really having the time to like go out and like push some boundaries, but in a way that I could come back and be really have a new knowledge about what was possible for me.
So for you, does that give you that clarity, as a leader in your life and a leader of your business? Is that something you use to get you closer to that?
Yes, and not in the way that like not I think for me, like actually having that the multiple hours of just honestly being solo is part of it. Um to like to have time to think, to be physically in motion, brings like I feel like I can bring back a part of myself and a way of being that's like more clear. Just doesn't have as much junk attached. Does that make sense?
Completely, yeah. Yeah, I know
Oh,
it's can be very therapeutic.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I might have taken us down a different path, but
No,
uh,
I like it. I go back and forth on that because I historically and really enjoyed really pushing myself physically, whether that's through sports, exercise. I have a martial arts background, which I was,
mm,
almost chronically obsessed with in the last 5 years. And I've had to, you were talking about knowing yourself.
mm-hmm.
I've had to be very careful that sometimes the exact opposite is what I need.
Rest.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even before I got into martial arts, I took up yoga. And that for me, sometimes I'm more of like a force, force it, make it happen, let's go. And sometimes the opposite is what I need, which
Yeah.
seems to be more therapeutic for me. So it's a sort of a juxtaposition of me going back and forth to really to push myself and then be like, look, you're pushing so hard that you're not thinking clearly because I'm trying to just streamline thoughts and ideas. And sometimes I gotta let go and let the process evolve.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's such a good point too. And like do you track any of your health metrics? So there's this really great
I'll
metric.
tell you why after.
Okay. There's this really great metric of HRV, which is your heart rate variability.
Yep.
And whether you have like a Whoop or a Garmin or any of like the wearables, um, all companies try to get really focused on that as one of the main metrics. And what HRV measures is your ability to recover. And I think that actually like over this year and over the last 4 years or so of exploring more and like the understanding more about like body performance and human potential, I think that so often we can misunderstand or undervalue the importance of rest. And so that like the HRV metric is kind of fascinating because it'll show you everybody has their own range. But if you're doing behaviors like drinking alcohol or not sleeping enough or just training too hard or have very high stress, then it'll show up in your body's ability to recover. And I love that idea of like measuring your success not by how hard you're pushing, but by how well you're able to recover.
Yeah. Yeah, I know this is something probably like Peter Tia, Andrew Huberman, a lot of those people are constantly talking about this.
Mm.
I've had this conversation with a few people and I have the idea of how if I ever get into the metrics of tracking stuff, is I will only do it if I check it 24 hours later.
Not, yeah. Okay.
And I'll
So
tell
like,
you
yeah.
why, because knowing my mind, back to to knowing yourself, I'll chronically overthink it. So if I woke up and
Mm.
said, I didn't sleep enough, I will probably almost instantly internalize that, carry it with me all day. But if I got to the end of the day, say like, hey, I felt pretty good today. Let's see what Oh, wow. I only slept 2 hours last night. So I just wonder, knowing myself, I would turn this into a psychosomatic thing for better or worse. And
Yeah.
that's why I've just veered away because
Well, you're here. You know that for you, it's not something that's going to help you in the like getting that instant data.
but yeah, I could use, if I had 24 hours later, I could use it tactically. Like,
Mm,
okay, I did sleep really good last night. Now that I know that, I'm going to try to follow suit and do that again.
yeah.
But the instant might, just knowing me, it would, I think, would do more harm than good. But sometimes it's good to know what's really working,
Yeah.
do more of it.
Yeah. And at a high level, right? You're so right. Like the checking it every hour, like getting your report and trying to react to it versus like looking at what are the patterns that I see and what changes do I want to make to be more in line with the direction I want to go.
We were talking about, LinkedIn and Instagram and social media.
Mm,
So I don't have any on my phone.
that's good.
And the reason is because it'll suck me in. And
Yeah.
I don't like to say I have an addictive personality because I don't want to put that badge on myself, but I have addictive tendencies.
Yeah.
And so
Same.
I just know my limits, and I run my social media life from my computer or my dummy phone here,
Sure.
but I don't, as I brought this with me today, but because I don't have it with me a lot, so
Yeah.
there's a level of disconnect I can have. It just works for me. It can be difficult sometimes with a business to do that, but I'm like, you know what, this is the boundary, this is the line.
Yeah. Well, and I find, I mean, for me, when I spend too much time on social media, LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, I find I slip into this place of comparison.
Mhm.
Like, am I doing enough? Should I be doing more? Should I be? And that it can waste a lot of time. Um, but I mean, by you identifying that, like I notice I feel a certain way when I'm looking at this all day, so I'm going to make another decision, just gives you so much more space.
And it seems every other influencer is letting you know that you're not doing enough if you're not posting enough and you're not showing up enough. And I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I want to back all the way back up at the beginning. So you said you do this for founders.
Mm.
Is there a is there a scope to what that? I know you sort of had some financial metrics of income, but so is it a founder that they've, like, a bootstrap founder, or did they raise
Mm.
capital? Does it not matter? Is it just sort of depend on where they're at and what their need is for your service, or is there some, some qualifications?
Yeah. I mean, no, there's not in terms of like how their company is founded or what type of company they have. I
Yep.
have clients that are across a broad spectrum of different types of businesses. Um, I would say the founders and the owners that I work with are not in pure startup phase, right? They've had some success in their business. They likely have customers, revenue, maybe even a team, and they've reached a plateau of sorts. And what I usually hear people say is like, I'm feeling stuck, but I don't know why. Or, um, you know, another common thing that I might hear is like the business is going really well, but I feel like it's running me. I'm not running the business. Or they're contemplating like, what is the next step, right? Is it to like sell the business, and what does that entail? Usually there's some turning point that prompts somebody in that position of being an owner or a founder to recognize like I could use a different type of support now. And there's usually some key transition either happening or coming up. Um, what other characteristics? I think one of the things I was meeting with a mentor recently, and he said to me, I was describing this 6-month intensive that I offer, and I've had the good fortune and honor of taking 22 business owners through this program this year. And so I was sharing with him some of the things that I was observing and the impacts that it has had. And he asked me two questions. The first one was, he was like, how many people cry in while they're doing their work with you? And I said, well, actually, I mean, almost 100%. And not right. I'm like 50-50 male, female clients. Like I have clients that are in like, traditional, like, corporate careers, those are in more creative. But I think what this type of work does is really get to the human part of building a business. And that can be very vulnerable. And so, like, being able to create a space that allows for that. But it also isn't something that we dwell in, right? We're not like, the goal is not to cry. The goal is
And
to
just, yeah, sit in that feeling for
no, not at
eternity.
all. But it is to, like, listen, like, wow, if you have strong emotions around these themes, one, you're human. That's great. And two, what's the message? Like, what is it telling you? And then I think the second characteristic um, is first one would be they're willing to explore at that level, right? That will allow them and enable them to go even further. And then the second one that was mentioned to me was, this mentor of mine said to me, well, by the time somebody's ready for this work, they have to have failed a couple times.
Okay, that's very cool.
And I think that's so beautiful, right? Because, like, failure is an incredible teacher. It's also very humbling. And once we get used to failing or recognizing, like, this doesn't have to go perfectly right, and in fact you learn so much, then, like, there's a lot of growth that is possible. If we're holding so tight to, like, this idea that we cannot fail or we can't make mistakes or we can't start over, it really limits the amount of growth that you're able to have, both as a person, but also the amount of growth and the, like, boldness that you can have in growing your business.
And if anyone's wondering what founders are, the questions they're asking themselves, it's just really simple. It's what's the meaning to life? I've been there. That's it. And then hopefully you have answers, because people are going to be expecting
Well,
them.
but
No, I'm just
remember,
kidding.
I don't have answers. That's the whole thing. Yeah, no, often people, like, if we're gonna, like, to continue with that, everybody's gonna have a different answer. And I think where we get stuck, especially for those of us, I think, that identify as, like, high achievers or doers, um, is that, like, sometimes your answer to that is gonna look very different than other people or what other people believe it should be. And if that's something that that you allow to get inside your head, it can stop you from having the impact that you have the potential for.
I've heard this coined as the swamp, when people are stuck in this revenue category of roughly 3 to 10 million.
Ah,
And they say
yeah.
it's a swamp, people can build a company to there and then get stuck. And I'm having the joke. I'm like, these people are complaining. I'm just trying to get in the swamp with them. What's the issue, guys? You're ungrateful. But I think I see where you're coming from, is that you can build these systems, and there's sort of a model to build a team and have this, and then you get there and you're like, okay, what are we doing? This is like, this works, but does any of this make sense?
Kinda. I mean, partially. And I think too, like, I don't know, I'm assuming you've had this experience that, like, sometimes we have in our head the goal. So, like, let's use the swamp goal, right? Like $3 million. Like, that would be great to build a $3 million business. And you get to that level, and then it's like, okay, what's next? Like, do I keep going? I think as you get to each new tier of the business, um, money is cannot be the only motivator.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of the same guy that says this. He says, "Yep, and you can get through this swamp and you can make all kinds of money, and that's what I want you to do. So then you can figure out that money is not going to solve anything for you."
Yeah, right. And I mean, I think I had that experience in building the growth agency that I had in my head. I'd left a partnership that was misaligned and started a business from $0, left all my clients at the table, or in this previous partnership, and um, was really committed to building in a certain way, and having a lot of integrity in building this business and this new offering. And in under 3 years, we went from $0 to having reached $1 million in recurring revenue. Um, and I remember us celebrating for like 5 minutes, maybe like half a day, like, yes, we reached this milestone, right? And then immediately my mind went to, well, how do we get to 3? And then how do we get to 10? And then what's the goal? And I think, like, without a deeper purpose or understanding of the why, we can get very waylaid by metrics and data and revenue numbers that actually just have you always wanting more.
This will be fun for me because I can tie this into my own business right now. So this is the podcast. This is the extension of Mountain Mule Transportation.
Sure.
This is that exact situation playing out where I needed a way to attach more meaning to what I was doing. And this is for my community, for my clients, for my employees, for my community. I really hope they can hear conversations like this. I'm having a great time talking to you, and I think there's a lot of value to be taken. And I hopefully I can extend that to other people. These connections can be made. But I've said this forever, and it's like I said, I don't identify with any of these beliefs, but it's always been really hard for me to be financially motivated. And I'm not coming from a position where, finances were always just a really simple thing in my life growing up, but it doesn't light me the way that other things light me. And I have the company that's doing well, but I felt kind of detached from it. I'm like, it's hard for me this is great. I know this works, but I have to ask myself why. And then to be able to mold this into that has been an awesome experience for me.
Yeah.
And it's like in my mind, I'm like, this is just getting started. So this is so cool.
That's exciting.
So it's been exciting to blend the two.
Right. And I'm thinking about like knowing what I know about the intent of this podcast and these conversations. Like I imagine like the ability to bring in the human element, right? And like understand purpose, the why, but also like I find I moved to Montana 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and we've left and come back and left and come back for different reasons. But like what's happening in Bozeman, what's happening in this state, like there's so many incredible people building phenomenal things that you would never know about. And it's really, I think, motivating. It adds like this extra layer of I don't know, like vitality and like to hear other people's stories. And I can imagine as a business owner yourself, right? Like just to connect with others that are in the state of building it, it makes it so much more than like, I need X number of customers and this number of revenue and these number of employees. Like there's a bigger purpose and impact to it actually.
It could be a Sunday afternoon and you could be riding one of your horses on a trail and you could cross paths with someone who's doing incredible things and you otherwise might never know. And
I love that.
when you tie it together, you're like, holy shit, this is awesome. This is so cool. And I couldn't agree more because when I started doing this, complete opposite background of anything I've done in my life because I've been farming my whole life, but I was driving clients around and I built these connections with these clients. Some of them are such good friends to this day. And a friend and a client of mine just sent me and my fiance to a really cool event that we've gone to twice. She completely comped it. And we're the most like, if you looked at our backgrounds, or at least now you'd be like, oh, those two people would never, like, we're good friends. She's a mentor for me. She's a very successful business owner, entrepreneur. And I just feel eternally grateful for the fact that I had some time to spend with her and then to be able to replicate it and do it with the business owners here.
Yeah.
So I've totally been there. And you start to ask, why am I doing this? What is the meaning to life? That's why.
Can that be the title of this podcast episode?
What is the meaning? Yes.
Well, but we have to make sure people know we're not answering the question. We're just asking more questions.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Usually sorry if anyone's discouraged by this, but usually it's a Chat GPT generated title. I don't have time to sit down and title all these podcasts.
Oh yeah. Okay. So here's another thing. We're bringing it more. We're bringing it back to human or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. We got the title.
Yeah. The questions of life.
That's even better. We got multiple ones. What else should people know about you? What were any of those businesses worth talking about that you ran beforehand, or anything? I mean, what did you learn? You obviously learned a lot from that. And you've got a family, so I'm sure you learned a lot from that.
Yeah, let's see.
And how far are you running these days?
Ooh. Can I answer that one first? Because that's the
Yep.
easiest question. So I just completed my last, I've been calling them epics. I just completed my last one of the year, which was 38 miles in Zion. So that's my longest distance. And mile 35 of that run, we were coming down from Angel's Landing, and I was like, this is the last time I will ever be running in my entire life. I'm really glad I'm enjoying it because I think I'm done with this sport. But then by 10 a.m. the next morning, my best buddy and I were already plotting about how we could do it the opposite direction next year. So that's the other funny thing about running and running long distances. In the moment, you're like, especially like the longer miles. I don't know if that's such a great, like, it doesn't feel like a great idea, but it's like getting to enter into this other world for that time that you're on the adventure, and it's very addictive.
Yeah. I know the feeling. That's so cool.
Oh, so let's see other things that I've learned. I mean, I think one of the stories that I share that I think would resonate with others is I think when we decided to move back to Montana. So um, in 2009, my husband and I got married out at Roy's Barn, Spring Hill area.
I had a
Um,
client call me about a wedding at that barn today.
I love Roy's
Yeah.
Barn. Nancy Roy might still be running it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It was great. We had a great party. And then we moved to Seattle. Marcus started law school at UW. And at that time, I had been in land conservation, which is what I was working in when we were in Bozeman prior, and had an opportunity to go to Google, where I spent the better part of a decade growing my career there. And over that time that we were in Seattle, we had twins, Scarlett and Lola, who are now preteens. They're 12. Um,
What great names.
oh, thank you.
Scarlett and Lola.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they fit their personalities too if you ever
Awesome.
meet them. Um, Marcus and I were also having opportunities come up in our careers that I think we never really like thought we would be there, meaning like, when you're in the flow and I think we kept saying yes. So he ended up at a private law firm in Seattle practicing environmental law, and I ultimately was running a global team within Google, which had me traveling a bunch and like setting up new teams. And it was all very exciting. But we were on a camping trip when the girls were almost 2 with some friends. And Marcus and I like went for a walk around the campground. And I was able to finally put into words what wasn't quite sitting right with me, despite all of the like success on paper. And what I said to him was, I feel like I'm not dealing in the right currency. Like,
That's a cool expression
right?
or phrase.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like. I was finally able to express it because, like, we were so fortunate, right? And like the opportunities that were coming our way were very exciting. And like, people from the outside, I felt like would have said, like, if you were to say no to keep going on this path, right? Like, you'd kind of be an idiot. Like, why would you take yourself out of that really exciting path of acceleration in your career and life? And ultimately, like, I felt like there was just so much, at Google at the time, like, financially, I was earning quite a bit for my age. We were getting stock options. There were things that were like very quote unquote rewarding. But I felt like for me, I couldn't like spend it. I couldn't spend it on the things that I actually wanted, which was like time with my family, a little more space and ease in my mind. And so that actually was the conversation that we decided to move back to Bozeman, um, to get closer to where we really wanted to be. And that required, like, I left my job, Marcus left his job. We made a big set of decisions to come back, but primarily motivated by making more space and time for the things that we did want in our lives.
That is so cool that you had that insight. I want to ask you a question of that. How
Mm,
important is it that Marcus, you have his support and you guys are both aligned on, on leaving those. Like I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure a lot was going on with Google,
yeah.
and I'm not sure what he was doing, but I imagine you both had to, walk away from those financial opportunities and have that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say 200%. Can I have a bigger number than 100%
Yeah.
important?
Yeah. Yeah.
500%. I mean, I think like, and this is parallel to our business conversation, but I think like, um, having a partner in life that you can have those conversations with, right? And like raise your hand and even be like, I'm feeling a little bit off, or like this, I don't know if we're on the right path. Cause you do when are you engaged right now? You
Yes.
said, oh,
Yep. Thank you.
congratulations. It's a really exciting time in
Yeah.
life. And, you kind of hitch can I use a horse analogy?
Yeah. Please do.
You hitch your horse to somebody else's cart, or is it the other way around? You hitch your cart to somebody's horse.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And right, you're like together navigating a lot of things that you had no idea that you would be in, whether it be career-wise, family-wise. Um, and I think like as I look back in these big pivots that I have made in my career, they were really supported by the partnership that I had with my husband. And it hasn't always been smooth sailing, right? We've had to learn a ton about communication and navigating challenges together. There have been times when we have been at odds, but I think having the ability to like talk about it and have a bigger vision that you're both sharing is huge. I can't imagine that it would be possible if you didn't have that ability to do that.
That's refreshing and good to hear. And I think I would probably put it as like the number one most important decision that someone can make.
Yes,
And
I
I,
agree. Actually, yeah, choosing a partner in life.
yeah, it's like talk about building a team. It's gonna it's gonna start with the partner you choose to spend your life with. Your friend group is gonna expand, but I cannot say enough good things about my fiance and the way I've just seen my
Hmm.
life go like this with her. And all I try to do is make sure I'm showing up to do the same for her. So
That's
she was
amazing.
the
Well,
one on the horse with me when we
no,
were
I'm
okay. Yeah,
guessing.
yeah,
Yeah, she was awesome.
yeah.
Um,
She's
I want to hang out with her too.
she's
Well, and like
you'd get along with her well.
it's like you're with that person at the lowest of the low, right? And then you also get to enjoy the high highs together. And like I think it's also for somebody that can tell you how it really is or how they really see it. Um, when I shared that we went on this sabbatical for a year with our family, and I shut down my business, or put it on pause to be able to take some space. And we came back to Bozeman, and Bozeman it's a very expensive place to live. I had no longer had my consulting business. My husband is an attorney. He was doing some legal work, but we had a point after our return where money was really tight, and it was causing a lot of stress, of course, because that's just the nature of it. And there was one morning we were in the kitchen. Marcus was unloading the dishwasher, and we were talking about like a set of upcoming bills that we had, and like how we were going to be able to navigate it and what to be switching around. And I had said to him, you know, I think that if I could easily make a couple calls and go back to consulting. Like, I think I could get a couple projects off the ground and start getting money in the door so we don't have to be so stressed. And he stopped unloading the dishwasher and he came over to the kitchen table and he was like, don't take this the wrong way, but I like you a lot more when you're coaching than when you're consulting. And I was like, oh my God, me too. Because it's a different, right? The I was showing up differently, not only in my work, like, but also in my family. And so I think having a partner that rather than joining me in like the panic and the stress of like, I'm not bringing in any money, I'm making it harder for ourselves. Like he was like, I need you to be in this space where you are present and powerful and engaged and curious versus like driving and doing and achieving, because it changes how you are in the world.
That's so cool that's your teammate.
I know.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
To
Hey,
have to
Marcus.
have that to have that honesty. Shout out to
Yeah,
Marcus.
shout out to Marcus.
Just that honesty and that
Yeah.
teammate that's so cool.
Yeah, and you can be like, I actually don't enjoy being around you when you but
That
there's
honesty,
yeah.
that's what you're
Yeah.
So, sometimes with my fiance, are you going to be working from home today?
Right.
It's like the windowless studio isn't that bad. I'll
Right.
be
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
How about the kids? What does that touch you?
Oh, wow. Let's see. So I think so I have identical twins, girls. Um, I think, we've talked about running a bit and like endurance sports. I would say like this longest distance that I just did down in Zion, which was almost 40 miles. I was telling my girls was the second biggest athletic event of my life, second to my identical twin pregnancy. um, and I think like the transition, right, of like becoming a parent, the loss of perceived control that you have over like how things happen, how things unfold, is a huge lesson in parenthood. I remember when my babies were born, so like the twin pregnancy was a huge surprise to us, and in the ultrasound room, I dropped the F-bomb. I was like, "What the beep?" And I even asked the tech, like,
You
"How
like
do?"
that edit? You like that editing skills, folks? I saved your reputation. That wasn't you.
But I think I asked her, like the ultrasound tech, I was like, "How does this happen?" She's like, "Well, an egg like breaks into two." And I was like, "No, no, no. How does this happen to me?" In my vision, like I don't have, I like that just seems, I don't, it was not something in the concept. And at the end of the day, like it has been the greatest gift. Um, because I think like, in the early days of having two infant newborns, like my idea of like doing it perfectly right was just not possible. And it was so humbling. Um, and then I think, even now the girls they're in middle school and they're preteens and they have a lot of opinions and a lot of just a lot of new ways to see the world, and it's been so cool. Actually, I find like the more that I can release control over how it should be or what they should be doing or what it looks like, even to like um I don't know, be a parent in a certain way to two 12-year-old girls. Like it just like the possibilities keep opening. Like they're so fun to experience life with and like have little adventures with. Um, and then it's very challenging. Like we're on an emotional roller coaster right now with two preteen girls in the house.
I could only imagine.
My poor husband. And then we have a dog named Winnie who's also super intense. She's like a healer husky um shepherd mix.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
again, yay Marquez. He's
Shout out to Marcus again.
yeah, he keeps the energy in the house like very even keeled, which is important.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll say this on record. If I if I found out that we were expecting twins, I'd be so excited.
I would be
And and
excited
and
for
and I don't
you.
have any kids, so
I
I'm
would
I'm just saying it now as someone who doesn't have kids, but I might be like, oh fuck.
Are you going to beep that
Sorry if I
out?
didn't edit that one.
I would be excited for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been the biggest gift.
And
And like and two, I don't know, having identical twins. I think I was very fearful when I was pregnant that like nobody would be able to tell my kids apart or they wouldn't have their own identities in the world because, I think as I grew up, like being independent was very important. And they've taught me so much about yeah, our like uniqueness in the world. And also like there are people, it's interesting. There are some people that know our family that immediately will make the effort to tell my daughters apart. Whether it be the way they speak or how they hold themselves, or they'll make time to ask for their different names. And then there's some people that have known us the whole time, like for the girls' entire lives, and they still can't tell them apart. And I think it's been such an interesting view into like people, like
oh
who's
yeah.
making the effort, right?
Hmm.
Who's seeking to like understand a little bit more.
When I was coaching martial arts, there was two different sets of identical twins,
Wow.
and it would be tough sometimes. I'd have to find the smallest nuances and remember them, and then associate that with a name. And yeah, I just remember that, and Like, I'm sure they see the world different than everyone.
Yeah, right. Um, yeah, I'll tell you one final baby story. But when my girls were starting to talk, they would have these words that they would use that were, and kids just do that, right? They're like adapting language. But Scarlett and Lola came up with this phrase, arch others. So instead of each other, they would say arch others, and they would talk about like how arch others,
Oh, interesting.
like, we love arch others is something that they would say. And I remember thinking like, wow, if all of us could just think about ourselves as arch others, like, not that we're so uniquely independent and we're only out for ourselves. Like, what a better world this would be.
In 10 years from now, and there's this giant global brand in this business, and it's called Arch Others. You heard it here first, folks. I don't know what it'll be, but I like it.
Yeah, you should get royalties. Well, let's
No, I
write it in the
sure,
I
yeah.
did sign a contract
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
came in here. We
you're
should
right.
put in
Yeah.
Arch Others Inc.
And to back up on me being excited about twins as the one who wouldn't have to carry children, it's great. Easy for me to be excited. So just putting that out there.
I'm an advocate.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you.
Thanks. If anyone wants to inquire about what you're doing, if they want to follow you along, if they want to find you on LinkedIn or social, or they are potentially interested in your services,
Yeah.
I'm sold. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So my website is welcometoelemental.com. And then I am on LinkedIn. I try to be pretty active there in sharing and engaging with others. So you look for me, Kelly Ramirez, with Elemental. And those would be two ways to get in touch. And I welcome conversations. I would love if somebody hears this podcast and is intrigued. I'd really love, to talk a little bit more.
Cool. And remind me, there's someone I want to connect you with as well that I think
Oh,
would be
great.
a great match for you.
I love that.
Is there anything else anyone should know about you or your work, or any words of wisdom to leave the audience with?
Gosh, that's a high pressure question, Tim, to end the conversation with. I'd say like, I don't know, maybe back to that story that we talked about currency. Like, I think if you happen to be in a time right now where you are right feeling like overwhelmed or exhausted or frustrated and kind of looking around like, what, I shouldn't feel this way, right? Like, this doesn't really make sense. I would say like check in with your currency. Where are you spending, right? And where are you earning? And does it match up in terms of like what actually brings you fulfillment and joy and connection? Um, and not in a woo-woo way, like truly take some time to think about that, because I think we don't often give ourselves time to just sit and consider. Um, and so that would be my final parting word. What's your currency right now?
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
love your energy and your spirit
Oh,
and what you're doing.
thanks. This was so much
Yeah,
fun.
it was a blast.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links, at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.